Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there. Welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. As always, want to thank everybody for your support on Patreon, also with Ko-Fi, and also our YouTube memberships. We couldn't do it without you guys. This was a live that we did yesterday. Again, we're trying to do all the lives on EEARTS on YouTube at this moment, just for consistency to make it easier for people.
Indeed. And please come see us on the lives. We're a little bit not always consistent with the time, but we are on live and we do our best to be consistent with the time.
Yeah, in general, we're trying to go between 5 and, say, 6 p.m. Central Time. With us, we have appointments scheduled with people all around the world. So, sometimes we might have to make an appointment for Australia or New Zealand. And, things like this will change our times a little bit. I wanted to show you guys, maybe we've covered this before, but in perhaps bits and pieces, and maybe in some lives that were very long, so people would be deterred from looking at it. As you look at Keir Starmer land in China, what's he doing over there in China? What's he really doing over there? Why does he look so, how would you describe his aura? Apprehensive, tense, nervous. I mean, that's what I would describe.
I keep picking up that he's got to be there in person, so there's some in-person signature or something he's going to do.
Yeah. So, why bending the knee to China? Well, it's part of a bigger plan that's underway, but plans, they don't often work out perfectly when you get down to it on planet Earth. In fact, there can be a lot of different things that can get in the way of the best laid plans. This is video advice. They put this up 3 days ago. This is a channel that gets good reach. It's talking about Dr. John Coleman, right? And John Coleman wrote a book, The Council of 300, which we have. And in it talks about this elite group of 300 people that calls itself
the intelligence circles as the Olympians.
The Olympian Council. Why in the world would 300 people, some of which you've never heard of ever, that are really like running the show to a degree, call themselves the Olympian Council? Well, in fact, it makes absolutely perfect sense, really.
We talked about this a little bit last night about how there's this unseen force beyond certain laws and lawmakers that we cannot see, that we do not have access to, that are running the show.
Yeah. So again, who are the ultimate beings that these people are reporting to? Again, kings, queens, presidents, prime ministers, they report to others. There's others that stay in the shadows. Obviously, there's secret societies that kind of tie everything together. By the way, this is a PDF. I'll make sure I link it to Dr. John Coleman's book here. And it talks again about the Committee of 300. Now, we here in the Western world have this tendency to view things through a biblical perspective. That's because that was hammered into us from birth. Again, when we go to school, and you're forced to go to school in many places, you got to go to school. Thankfully, there is a lot more homeschooling going on now because, again, school indoctrinates us, plain and simple. It's indoctrination. It is brainwashing. And what we've learned is that most of the history that we learn is not true. It's basically, again, being told from the side of the victors. Even the science is always changing as we find contradictions to what was told in perhaps a different period. Things that your parents were taught are not accurate sometimes when it comes to your time to go to school. Oh, by the way, your parents were told this, but this is actually how it is. And that'll actually change again as we get to the point where we realize that lies will be uncovered, but the truth will just simply stay the truth.
Well, the truth is going to stay standing while everything else, it'll fall away.
Yeah, so the Olympians, the Olympian Council, There is a biblical phrase about kingship coming from on high. And what does that really mean? What does it really mean when Psalm 82, 6 through 7 says, you are God's? And is it in the possessive? Because that's how we're taught. All of you are children of the Most High. You are God's. Like ownership. You are owned by the gods, or you are owned by God. But you shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Again, these prophecies and these old sayings, which are echoed in both Old and New Testament. This is Psalm 82. This is the authorized King James Version, which starts with, God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judgeth amongst the gods. Wait a minute. So God stands amongst the gods. Well, if God is one of the gods, then you're not talking monotheism. Hello. Again, what happens is people, they just say, well, somebody that interpreted that knows better than I do, so who am I to try to make sense of it? I'm just supposed to believe it. Hello. Isn't that what got us in trouble in 2020? Isn't that what's got us in trouble with everything from the monetary system on down, the political system, the medical system? When you trust that somebody else in a high position understands better than you are just begging for trouble, because that's the reality. Is it's been used in a political manner to control people's minds. When you see this, so right there, you're talking, it's not monotheism. It never was monotheism. And in fact, this is the Names of God version, which is translating from the Hebrew more, Elohim, that's plural, takes place in his own assembly. He pronounces judgment amongst the gods. So again, this is one being of a higher nature, a higher order, more powerful, and that simply could be military power as well as technological. But he's one of a certain type of being, which is not us to a degree. So when you look at these different translations, it'll start to give you clues. And of course, this has got questions. Again, this is all about, trying to cover these things that appear to be incongruous. The big question mark, questions, what does it mean, John 10:34, ye are gods? Again, is it that we're of, the family of God, so to speak? And of course, everybody knows the traditional Christian interpretation. But when you look closer, you'll realize that you're not getting the right interpretation. You're getting a revised interpretation. But, this is what we have. When people go to, Bible school, they learn how to counter these things that will pop up, which, again, show the true origin of that which has made up the Abrahamic tradition. When you look and recognize that, Elohim is a plural term. Other uses of the term Elohim can include spiritual beings such as angels, demons, idols, and gods of foreign nation, even disembodied dead in some cases. But, it's also mostly translated as judges. And so who are the judges? Well, you got to go beyond anything biblical, because it's, again, the newer revised wording of the older stories. When you look to Critias by Plato, we're talking, again, now much older than pretty much everything Old Testament and New Testament by a long ways. And you have a lot more detail in Critias. Critias is a dialogue written in ancient Greece that recounts the legendary story of Atlantis, a mighty island kingdom that attempted to conquer Athens. And again, recognize that this is written by the victors. So this actually might be the exact opposite. And who does Athens really represent? Who does Atlantis really represent from this standpoint? But the interesting part is that Plato describes how the gods divided the ancient earth. the gods, divided the ancient earth. Athens embodied ideal civilization of virtue and moderation. This was part of an unfinished trilogy. The work ends abruptly, leaving Atlantis' fate tantalizingly incomplete. Ah, yes, because they don't want you to really understand the divine counsel. And again, often when you take the exact inverse of the words they give us, you're getting closer to the truth. So if you're talking the divine counsel, maybe we really should be calling that the satanic counsel when you get down to that. Our movies are modern-day interpretations of mythologies that all of us have grown up with. Here you go, Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Again, to get us still hanging on to some of these myths that are so rooted in our very essence. The 12 Olympian gods. Well, wait a minute. We have 12 Olympian gods. We have 12 months. We have 12 apostles. We have 12 hours. Twice. But the 12 tribes of Israel, you can see the symbolism. It's really, again, giving us a clue as to where did our system come from. Our system came from the Olympian god side of things, which, again, who is that? Well, who were the Olympian gods in conflict with? They were in conflict with the Titans. And the Titans are forces of nature. They are representing the natural order of things. And if we switch over to use Vedic terminology, you can call the Olympian gods Asuras, and you can call the Titans the Devas. And what happens is that the old system is thrown out, a new system is brought in. Again, when we see representations of the Olympian gods, and then you see some of the paintings that have been done by amazing artists, and look at Michelangelo's work in the Sistine Chapel, and you have God reaching out his hand to Adam. Well, it's very much the same energy that you see with the Olympian gods. This is because these are the beings we're talking about. And when we talk about these Olympian gods, it's interesting to note 12. Why 12? Well, if we look to the old ancient Sumerian Babylonian system, we see that everything is based on 12. In fact, there are even some giants that had 6 fingers and 6 toes. Do you think there could be any coincidences there? And the hybrids, too, because, Zeus himself, he was let's just say he was kind of like a modern-day rock star in ancient times. He was all about, he was doing the Elon thing, creating hybrids everywhere. This would only work if your DNA is similar. You have to be of the same sort of being. Why are they always interpreted as being humanoid, at least to some degree? Well, it's because, again, this is what's found throughout the manifest universe, is a human type of form, meaning 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, typically. Again, there can be avian versions, there can be reptilian versions, and even other versions as well. When you look at Zeus, many have equated Zeus with Enlil. I think it gets a little confusing because there is like this time lag that goes on, and there's also this taking over of positions and titles by newer gods of the past gods. Got to remember, these beings that we are talking about, they are all in service to themselves first and foremost. They are all egomaniacs. They're all megalomaniacs. Think about our politicians. They're all cheesing for that photo. They all want to be the top politician. They operate on ego. And when we look to Zeus, yes, I think, again, you're looking at him as being a representative of perhaps Enlil and the Anunnaki to a degree that came in and basically took over the control system on planet Earth. They absolutely implanted and gave us what we have today. Everything from the money system on down, again, the geopolitical system. This is the system really of Nibiru and of other worlds out there as well, as this is an intergalactic, interdimensional war that's happening in many different places at the same time. When you look to the big three, you have Zeus, Hades, and Poseidon. And you have the god that rules from the air, right? Mount Olympus and everything, that's Zeus. We can also equate that again to most of the Anunnaki, those that are coming from above to Earth. That's a big, very, very big term that includes all sorts of different species. When you look to Hades, what is Hades representing? It's representing the beings that are here in the planet, literally in the planet. Hades is a representation of the reptilians and those that live inside the earth, literally under our feet. So when you look at the devil and Satan, what we're looking at is a reptilian type of being. That is literally under our feet. Where is hell? Well, hell is under your feet, right? I mean, this is, again, part of the reality. The reptilians, which literally are living in underground cities right underneath many of you right now as you're watching this. And yes, there is a reptilian faction which has control of our geopolitical, leaning perhaps towards one side a little bit more than the other. And perhaps that Anunnaki side has control of another faction. But recognize, again, even amongst those that we call the Anunnaki, there are many different subsets. So, those that are more like us, again, the beings like Enlil and Enki, even though when you look at this, Enlil and Enki themselves, they do have reptilian DNA, but we also have a reptilian brainstem, and we are very much mutts. We have been genetically manipulated from many different species, many different beings. What is the reptilian agenda anyway? Well, it's just simply is it to turn humans into greys? Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. There's also a lot of truth in the fact that they look at humans as just another form of cattle on the earth, to be utilized for loosh, which is the energetic feeding frenzy that happens when we, again, send soldiers off to war, for instance. Why do soldiers wear uniforms? Because they're sacrifices. That's the bottom line. They're sacrifices. They're being dressed up as a sacrificial lamb to be put off and, to face these horrible atrocities of war, which does feed the energetic fourth density, lower vibrational beings like many of the reptilians. Although there are reptilians that are very physical, and there are many beings that can choose through their ability to control their own frequency to manifest in 3D and be just as physical as you and I, but can also go into a meditative state and shift into a slightly higher vibrational frequency, which would make them invisible to us. So that is something that humans can do as well with training, and especially that we're getting into the Bronze Age. So yeah, the reptilian side of things, that's the side that just needs to maintain a very minute number of humans compared to the number that are here, just really as a resource, an energy resource. And there's nothing really else there that and again, that they really are primarily interested in, other than looking at humans as a resource. Now, as we say that, there are always individuals, even in the reptilian species, which may be more malevolent than typical, and others that may be not so malevolent as typical. Different factions within a greater subset of the species. When you're looking at Poseidon, the god of the seas, this is representative of beings like Oans and Dagon. These were beings that did come out of the sea and that mostly didn't really harm people per se, but instead taught them a lot of things. Why are they dressed in this manner? Why does he have a fish suit on? Why does he look like a merman? Because again, these people, they live in the seas. They literally live in the oceans, and they've been here the whole time. So again, they do originally come from a different planet, and they came here to Earth for this experience. But again, we are a refugee planet. We have many beings that have come here from other places. And you see the bird beings and the fish beings there. Isn't that Interesting. Of course, mer people and Little Mermaid, all this is again being still put into our memories from Disney and the like.
It's a world beyond a world. It's definitely something that, we see things, we're allowed to see things at face value, but there is this world beyond our world, and slowly but surely that world is opening up. I just gotta say, when it comes to the issue around, people being dressed up to go off to ritual, they go so far as to put these like pins on them, and give them an identity, and but that's how you do rituals. You dress up and you put sigils on, and then you send away. And I'm just being a little careful with my words, but it's what they do. So that is, it looks to us like one thing, but beyond this world, it means a totally different thing. And I think we're just at a time now where many more people are discovering the world beyond our world, and we want to know more of the truth. Because maybe if we knew the truth, we would behave differently. We would make decisions differently. We would treat each other differently if only we knew the truth, and how much we are all being lied to, not just certain ones. We are all being lied to about the reality of where we live and how we live, and Earth as it should be a peaceful playing ground, but it's not. So we're just trying to uncover a little more information as we can, so that people see, and once you know better, you do better.
Absolutely. So here we see the Titans, right, which is representative of the natural order, and then the Olympians literally coming out of the Titans, but a totally different branch. And you see right here, we have Prometheus, god of fire, right? And Prometheus was, again, strung to a rock to have his liver eaten out every day, and then it regenerates. So it's showing that they're torturing nature. They're literally torturing nature, which the system of the Olympians is doing. It literally is doing with all the toxins, the poisons. This is how they operate. They're in service to themselves. They're just full of ego and greed and selfishness. And, that's really pretty much all the politicians we have on planet Earth. They are in service to themselves primarily. Some, again, choosing the lesser of two evils is really what we've had, and, may still have. But it might be ever widening gap between the two evils. When you look who's next to Prometheus, and again, what did Prometheus do? Gave fire. Fire is what? Fire is, gives us the ability to, yes, stay warm in the winter, cook food, etc. But it's also giving off light. Light is knowledge. And, this is where the Olympian system has taken away the knowledge. Again, if you look at the 12 Olympians, and then you look at the 12 tribes of Israel, and then you look at the 12 apostles, you're seeing the same system, and just doing things in different ways to appeal to different people. But it's still that system which is not aligned with the natural order of things. You have Atlas right next to Prometheus. Atlas holds the earth on his shoulders, right? Like it's a punishment. He's going to have to hold the earth up and strain and struggle forever. When we look to Atlantic, Atlas, this is again, part of the symbolism of the name. And the original name of the Americas, again, Atlan, and then when we think about Atlantis, it's all connected. There are indigenous tribes in Central and South America that utilize Atlan as the name for the Americas. Again, going back to that ancient knowledge that we had. When you look at these beings, they're representative of the beings of the natural order of the Silver and the Golden Age, and again, of even the higher end of the Bronze Age. which teach us in a gentle fashion, as opposed to the one that has been in charge in the Kali Yuga and on the edges of the Bronze Age, the ones that are in service to themselves only. When you look to Job and Satan and Job and God, what is this? Job this is the oldest story in the Bible. It's a man that once lived a wealthy life, was perceived to be an embodiment of all that is just. God dictates to Saturn, right? There you go. Satan, that Job is faithful. However, Satan argues that Job will have a change of heart once he's punished and blame God. Despite the loss of everything he loves, Job continues to stay faithful to God and was rewarded with twice the prosperity he once owned. So the message is conveyed through the story of Job and Satan as one of allegiance. Despite Job having everything he loved destroyed, Job retained his faithfulness to God and refused to scorn him. So, when you look at this, what's this really talking about? Well, that God is really representative of the Anunnaki again, and Satan is representative of the Reptilians. And one way you can say, it's everything that's being done to him by both the Reptilians and the Anunnaki, and he perseveres and he doesn't get downtrodden. Well, he does get downtrodden in parts. I mean, literally, he loses his wife, his kids, his house, everything. He loses everything. Now, there is a story in there that we could take from it, in that we understand this is just a temporary human experience. And yes, trials and tribulations lead to new learning, new growth. And, if you don't allow your frequency to dip lower, you could stay above the storm, and ultimately you can rise above events. Sure, that is absolutely there. Part of also what's there is the fact that these two factions always, send us toil and trouble. They're always kind of abusing us, whether it's the Anunnaki side of things or whether it's the reptilian side of things. So when you look at this story, you could take it in many different ways. When on high Yahweh reigned, translating Yahweh's kingship in ancient Israel. This is by Associate Professor of Hebrew. Sean W. Flynn is a faculty member there. When you get to a certain point and you've studied, the Bible and where it comes from, especially, looking again, what were the original words? What did they mean? There's no way you could come up with what people actually believe in the fundamentalist perspective. It's just not an accurate translation of how things developed. Yet it's what the masses do believe. The majority have not believed an esoteric form of Christianity or a more esoteric form of Judaism. Again, the Kabbalah goes into those details. And when you look at the Gnostics, they understood things very, very different than, again, the Constantinian point of view. The system that gave us our modern fundamentalist Christianity is, again, it's the kings and queens, like, again, King James, the King James Version. Some people will say that's the best version. Sure. Again, King James was the head of all the Masonic lodges in Scotland and England. He was the head of the Masons. This is the secret society group that ties so much together. There are many other secret societies. When you look at it, when you look at the relationship, again, with the presidents of the U.S., they all pretty much tie back to, again, the European royalty, because, again, these are the same beings coming back time and time again to do what they do, which is, again, to elevate themselves and suppress the rest of us. And so, why would you expect a king in the 1700s to be any different than King Charles today or Queen Elizabeth today? No, they're the same. I mean, they really are the same when you look at it. It's the same system. Constantine the Great killed his wife and firstborn son. This is the guy that brought about the birth of our modern Christianity. They debated on things like, is Christ a god or a man or a god-man? And is it all about a blood sacrifice or not? Is there something else there? All those things were debated. And basically they gave us a form of Christianity that we know today. So there were many arguments opposing the whole concept of blood sacrifice and dying on the cross, that was not a given. I mean, these were things that were debated. So, again, it was the system that gave us this modern belief set, which it's utilized to control through fear. Because, hey, if you don't believe, you're going to go and be eternally tormented. It's just a means to control. So when you see people react out of fear of punishment, that's coming from the dark side. That's not coming from the light side. That's not coming, from the creator of this, universe or, other universes as well. This is part of the clue, and also the fact that there's, again, different words used to designate the word that gets translated as either God or Lord all throughout the modern Bible, which, many of those are in the plural. And then you have the Elohist texts and you have the Yahwist texts. So, again, biblical scholars understand this, and they look at it all as allegory and just, as conceptualizing, in many ways, astrotheology, amongst other universal principles. They don't take it literally. Again, even Yeshua is attributed as saying that to the inner circle he spoke plainly the mysteries, but to the average person out there, no, they were given parables to chew on. They couldn't know the real truth of the situation. It was always hidden. And Cindy is smiling there.
Well, because look at how we have to speak today. I mean, we cannot just speak freely. We have to be very cryptic with a lot of things. So that just makes me wonder, has anything really changed?
No, and the more you actually study and start to learn, the more you realize that it was, again, it's just another tool. It's just another tool. And that's what they've used. But when you look to Critias, man, it's very plain. These beings lived with us. And this is what every single myth around the world says. There was a time when the gods lived with us, and then they disappeared. But they set in place certain bloodlines, this is that kingship given from on high, to rule over us. And again, they divided the world up into different tribes so they could keep the world fighting amongst itself. They don't want us uniting. And this is why they give us the prophecy of a one world order. And the thing that terrifies us the most is the world coming together. And it should terrify us, to come together under a reptilian system. But the only way to get out of this is to come together, ultimately, and overthrow the rule, the yoke of the reptilians, the Anunnaki, and really anybody that's interfering for benefit. So when you look to Plato again, you see this. Zeus had gathered all the other gods to their most high holy habitation, which was in the center of the world. So where is that? Is that actually down in Antarctica? Did Zeus have a gathering down in Antarctica to tell him what were we going to do? Again, there are galactic treaties. There are different treaties that are made between reptilian beings and Anunnaki and others as well, including, the avians, the Garudas, we were terming them. Some have called them the blue avians. Garuda is a avian being that has helped out many of the Hindu protagonists in their mythologies, and it's really representative of a species of extraterrestrial that are avian, and really without them, many of us might not be here at this point in time. And the avian, wings, again, the original meaning of angel is from a Greek word which translates messenger. So you got to recognize if you think you're describing something by saying fallen angels, that's the most generic way you could possibly describe anything. That's very generic. They're fallen messengers. Fallen messengers from who? From where? Of what? Again, we can look at the fall as being a vibrational fall, and you could take the Gnostic viewpoint that we were once without this heavy fleshly body, which is true because we're not always in the body. In fact, when you go and you're out there dreaming, you're out of the body. You literally left your body under the control of some elemental beings, which are very real, which again the church has caused you to fear. Any sort of beings, oh, that's the witch's familiar. No, those are elementals. They're literally running the body so the body can keep working. This is part of a bigger realization that they've kept people away from. Yes, you are not one singular entity. You are actually a group of many different entities. In fact, if we go down into all your microbiome, you're probably trillions of entities, trillions of different consciousnesses. Just like the Earth itself, we look at the Earth as being so big and vast, but it's just a single cell in something bigger. So, the ending of Critias, where Zeus, the god of gods, who rules according to law, is able to see into such things, perceiving that an honorable race was in woeful plight and wanting to inflict punishment on them, that they might be chastened and improved, collected all the gods into their most holy habitation. And again, when we see the stories of, wait a minute, the Anunnaki are leaving, and the Anunnaki watched the destruction of the Younger Dryas period on Earth from above, some of them wailing and crying because they did view us as their offspring, some of them. And others, good, they were just a big pain in the butt. Yeah, they did it from their ships in many cases. Other beings, like the Reptilians, just went down inside the Earth again, where they mostly live. And it was all of us surface dwellers that bore the brunt of that Younger Dryas. Really was a complete takeover of the planet by this very aggressive element. And there's been other times when they've, quote unquote, punished us when we start to create a alternative situation here on Earth. Again, when we look and we start thinking about Tartaria, what really is Tartaria? Is it Satan's little season? I think there's some truth in that. Again, breakaway civilizations that start to rise up and start to do things peacefully outside of the civilization that was given to us by these Olympian gods, going back again to the original. And this is the full PDF of Plato's Critias, by the way. I'll make sure I put it there. Go back to the council here. These handpicked people to work controlling humans under some sort of agreement between the Reptilians and, again, those that we might term the Anunnaki. But recognize that there is no honor amongst thieves, and these beings will absolutely stab each other in the back anytime they could. I don't know. That looks like a thumb or a finger to me. This is in Bulgaria. What did they really uncover here? Again, there were all different levels of giants. It might just be a simple rock. It doesn't have to be a titan. Again, the Earth itself was created and reformed after the destruction of Tiamat, which is given to us, as a war between Marduk and the Anunnaki, and, Tiamat, which is represented as a reptilian type of dragon energy. Well, Earth was recreated from the largest remnant of Tiamat. And when we look at titans and think about titans, yes, the titans that actually lived on Tiamat, they would have been immense. They would have been immense because, again, the portion of Earth that we see is only a tiny little fraction of that which is. And then yet Tiamat was so much bigger than Earth is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just very, very difficult to comprehend and put into our human brains, because our human brains were meant to sift and filter and actually protect us in a lot of ways so we can have this experience.
Yeah, so I hope that you guys got something out of this. Please do share this with friends, and go gently on those that still are still trying to shed themselves of again, the fear-based indoctrination. If we're doing something based on fear and fear of punishment, then you're not doing it out of love. Fear and love are opposites. And that was one of the best sermons I ever heard preached. It was on an Easter morning, I want to say about 20 years ago. It was a Lutheran minister that gave this sermon on the fact that love and hate are not opposites. It's love and fear. So anything based on fear is not coming from the true source, not coming from the true creator.
Indeed.
As always, guys, much love. Thank you for your support. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.